Welcome to Success Weekly with James Tharris, a weekly dose of thought-provoking ideas and helpful tips on improving your mindset. And now, here's your host, James Tharris.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Success Weekly. I'm your host, James Tharris. Today's topic is entitled, Don't Sell Yourself Short. Something that most of us probably do on a regular basis. I know I do that on a regular basis. I catch myself selling myself short a lot more than I'd like to admit, actually. But it's important to remember that we tend to focus, as human beings, we tend to focus on the negative things in life. If you don't think that's true, just turn on the news and look at how much of it is negative. You're going to find very little of it is positive. And there have been stations in the past that have tried to do nothing but positive news, and they don't have enough viewers to support them, so they don't last very long. And that's why your local news and the national news is typically, the majority of it is negative, and with a very, very tiny bit of positivity sprinkled in there for effect. So that's important to remember, that that's just human nature. It's important also equally to remember that we have to sometimes resist human nature, and that's kind of the topic of today's podcast. So I don't know about you, but I have in the past and occasionally still do tend to focus on my flaws, and it's very easy to do that because everybody has flaws. There's not a person on this planet that is flawless. We all have flaws, and at the same time, we all have strengths. So if you're listening to this and you think, well, I can't think of any strengths that I have. Here's maybe a couple of examples. Intelligence. Are you an intelligent person? If you are, that's a strength. Are you a kind person? In this day and age, that's an even bigger strength, I think. Do you have some kind of specialized knowledge or skill? Do you have a form of intuition? Are you often right about the way that you feel about things? Are you a person who's calm under pressure? Are you a person who works well within a team? Well, those are just several basic, simple examples, and I think if you were to sit down and list out, or better yet even, have one of your loved ones sit down with you and list out some of your strengths, I think you could probably come up with a decent laundry list of those. What I'd like to encourage you to do, though, is to find your strengths and then focus on those. See, you can't be great at everything. That's part of the problem with people, and especially people like myself that work in business and are trying to make a lot of things happen, is trying to do it all yourself. It's kind of one of those mentalities where if you want it done right, you do it yourself, and that's just not possible if you're going to really achieve major success in your life. You're going to have to rely on other people for some of your weaknesses. So in my case, my wife fills in where my strengths, or she fills in where my weaknesses are, and those are typically her strengths. So just as a very basic example, she is fantastic with numbers. That means adding and subtracting and dividing and multiplying and whatever else, and that's not one of my strengths. Can I do it? Sure, I can do it, but I'm not great at it. I make a lot more mistakes, and it takes me 2 or 3 times as long to come up with an answer that she can do in a mere few seconds and it be correct. So that's just a very simple example, but there are others. It's important to look back at your previous successes as evidence that you have strengths. So were you successful as a child? Let's say you played a sport as a child. You played Little League baseball, or you played Little League soccer, and you had success as the forward in soccer, or you had success as the third baseman, whatever it was. Did you have successes? Think back to those successes as evidence that you do have some skills. You do have some strengths, all right? The important thing, though, is not to live in the past, because you're better today because of your experiences, good or bad. That's also something to keep in mind, is when bad things happen to us, and they always will, they always have, and they always will. There's going to be a little bit of an up and down in our lives, and that's why they call it flatlining when somebody dies, and you hear that beep, and it goes across, and there's no more pulse. The person is dead. So if you're looking at the pulse, it goes up and down. Well, that's pretty much an example of life, and our experiences in life. And so some days are going to be great, that's your uppers, and then some days are going to be miserable, and those are your downers. And it's those dynamics between the two. It's what happens between those two lines that really makes a difference. And so it's important to keep that in mind, because it's very easy to allow your mind to get negative, and you'll find that it seems like things snowball. You have a snowball effect, and when one negative thing happens, a second negative thing happens, and then a third, and then a fourth, and then a fifth, and it's like life is like telling you, we're going to be throwing this stuff at you till you can't stand it anymore, to see just how much of this you can take. And I think that's sometimes what happens to us, just to determine how serious we are about our goals. So keep that in mind. You're going to have those ups and those downs, and when you're in the middle of having those downs, that's when you look back at your previous successes and realize you were successful back then, and you can be successful again. But again, don't live in the past. That's important to remember, because as I said, you're better today because of those experiences. You're better today because of the good experiences, and you're even better than that because of some of the bad experiences. As the old saying goes, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So here's your call to action today. I know this is going to be a bit of a short podcast, but sometimes I have a lot more to give you, and this one is pretty short and succinct and doesn't need much more said about it. So here's your call to action. Ask your closest friends what they think you're really good at and what they think your biggest strengths are. Then find a way to use your strengths to further yourself in life. Maybe there's a new career or a potential business or a part-time business or even your dream job waiting for you. And all you have to do is identify what your strengths are, and then maybe you can learn how to fit those strengths into a new career, a part-time business, or a potential business that you never thought of, or maybe even your dream job. Do you have an idea of what your dream job is? If you've got that thought out, figure out where your strengths can help you fit into that particular dream job. Do you have a dream job that you'd like to work as a supervisor? Well, then obviously you're going to have certain skills with organization, and you're going to have certain skills with getting along with people and being able to rally people to your cause and things like this. So if those are some of your strengths, maybe that's how you can work yourself into your dream job of being a supervisor, even if it's just at a fast food restaurant. That might be all you believe is possible for you at the moment. But when you get into that position, then you might start thinking again, dreaming a little bit bigger than that, and you move to a different type of job that has the same job title with it. So that might be a thing for you to do. That might be your dream job, is becoming a supervisor, moving into management, or for a lot of people, having their own business. That's the dream job, because they visualize the ability to be able to take off time when they want to take time off, and to give themselves a raise whenever they want to give themselves a raise, and a lot of the other things that we think about when we talk about entrepreneurship. And a lot of those things are true, but it's also important to remember that there's a lot of things when you're talking about your dream job or your dream profession that maybe you don't think about as well, because there's not a profession on the planet that doesn't have some downsides to it. There are downsides to virtually everything, and that's important to keep in mind as well. But your call to action today is to do that. Sit down and actually come up with, and I would recommend doing what I call tapping the pencil. Just sit down with an empty pad of paper and a pencil and tap it, and as you think of things, write something down. You'll find that as you write one or two things down, I'm friendly, or I'm a team player, I get along with people well, or I'm great at mathematics, or I'm a good organizer, or I have the ability to calm people down when they're upset, whatever it is. You're going to start writing these things down, and you're going to start identifying a list of your strengths. And that's the first step in this call to action. So I want you to do that this week. Really do it. Don't just listen to me and then shut this off and forget about it, but really do that. Sit down and actually take that pencil and write it to paper, and you're going to be able to identify a lot of things. Then the second step is going to be reviewing that, because as you review it, you're also going to think about some additional skills or talents that you have that you didn't think about before. And then your job is to figure out how you can monetize those skills, how you can put those skills to use to help you create a better, more successful life. So that's what I've got for you this week. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please like it and share it on Facebook and let your friends know about it. And if you have something you'd like for me, a subject matter you'd like for me to talk about, please let me know. You can send me an email at mastertheris@yahoo.com. That's M as in Mary, A-S-T as in Tom, E-R, then my last name, T-H-E-R-O-S as in Sam, mastertheris@yahoo.com. And I'd be happy to do what I can to put something together just for you. All right, have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you next week.
That's all for this week. Tune in next week for another episode of Success Weekly. Do you have an idea you'd like James to talk about in an upcoming episode? Post your comments and be sure to share this podcast with friends.